Hi folks, my name is Matt Bullock. I'm one of the technical marketing engineers with the Enterprise Networking Group at Cisco Systems. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the new ISR 4451X and what it brings to the table. Now, when we're on the ISR team, we're basically talking to customers every single day. For the last several years, we've been noticing a change in what our customers are telling us are their top business priorities. Of course, we still hear customers telling us that they still want to grow their revenue. They still want to acquire and retain customers. That's not changed at all. But one of the things we're really starting to notice is the impact of the IT organization and the impact of the network to their key business priorities. A lot of them are telling us that they really see the need, they really see a drive to address the rising expectations of their customers on their business, to really transform the way that the customers interact with the organization, with the enterprise. 78% of them, 78% of our customers are telling us that that network is now more critical than ever before to actually delivering those applications, to delivering on that rich interaction between their end customers and the company as a whole, or the enterprise as a whole. A lot of that's being driven by trends like bringing your own device to the office, BYOD, and cloud computing, being able to move an application from a desktop, from a data center off to the cloud, or even on the public internet. And most of our customers are telling us that while these are trends that they're planning to address in their network, to address within their IT organization, they really don't think that their network is currently ready, is currently up to speed with these late breaking, with these over-the-top applications. So they're really looking for a new network architecture, for a new design philosophy that keeps pace with these changing business realities. And those were really some of the guiding principles of the 4451X. We're really designing the 4451X more as a branch platform than as a branch router. We even debated for a while whether or not we should even call the 4451X a router, since we really aren't simply forwarding packets at layer 3 or even layer 4 anymore. We're actually fully application aware all the way up to layer 7. We're also very appliance aware. We're actually integrating real appliances, real appliance capabilities into the branch router, into the 4451X itself. Now, these are real appliances that can run fully capable with full services and full features, just like they do on an appliance that you might typically roll out in a branch for some enhanced, for some extreme service offered in the enterprise. We're also really seriously embracing the pay-as-you-grow model with the 4451X. A lot of service providers today are rolling out gigabit Ethernet connections to branches. Even if you're just buying something, say a 50 meg connection or a 100, 200, 300, or 500 megabits per second connection, it's often more economical for the service provider to roll out a physical 1 gig circuit and then police your traffic down to whatever you're actually paying for. What that means is then, as your branch grows, as the needs of your site grow, the service provider can really easily and quickly increase your available bandwidth with just a simple configuration change. When we were designing the 4451X, one of the things we asked ourselves was, if a service provider can make that upgrade, can make that change so seamlessly, why can't the branch router keep pace with that? It doesn't make sense if you can increase your bandwidth from the service provider in just a simple configuration command. It doesn't make sense that you have to roll out a new physical branch platform, a new router, just because you want to increase your bandwidth or increase the services or applications running on that remote site. So that's why the 4451X has a lot of additional built-in capabilities that you aren't necessarily paying for or using when you first buy the base platform. So we have a fully licensed-based performance model. So you can buy an entry-level 4451X targeted at 1 gigabits per second total throughput, and just with a simple license, with a simple software key, increase that platform up to 2 gigabits per second of performance. You can also run those real appliance level services inside of the branch platform itself, inside of the 4451X itself, without requiring additional hardware to run those appliances, to run those services inside of the branch. We're really trying to reduce the number of truck rolls you need so that hopefully you can roll out your branch platform and then not touch it for 5 years, 7 years, however long your branch life cycle tends to be. The second guiding philosophy is really a simplified service integration, being able to integrate those appliance services inside of the box itself, but also making the 4451X, the branch router, fully layer 7 application aware. So for the first time in the industry, we have a platform that was built from the ground up for real application experience. So we're actually forwarding packets, we're actually making forwarding decisions based all the way up at layer 7 of the protocol stack. So we're sort of leaving layer 3 and layer 4 behind. They're still there, but we're eyeing much more the actual applications, the underlying applications that are actually relevant to the business as a whole. The typical deployments that you see with the 4451X, really, this shouldn't be too much of a shock to existing ISR customers, folks that are familiar with the integrated services routers. Really, a branch platform. This is an ISR. The 4451X is a member of the ISR family, so this is a branch platform. Specifically, this is a high-end branch platform. We're really looking at 1 to 2 gigabits per second of total system forwarding. So this might be, depending on your traffic profile, your traffic mix, this might be your 500 megabits per second WAN link. It might be a 1 gigabit per second WAN link. The 4451X really targets those specific use cases really, really perfectly. It's designed to have a consistent look and feel and operational model so that it looks and feels just like the rest of the ISR portfolio. It looks and feels and configures just like an ISR G2. You use the same management tools, the same paradigm to manage a 4451X. It is really optimized for application performance. As I said, this is the first platform built from the ground up with real layer 7 awareness throughout. So it is very, very much application aware, and it does have embedded full-featured appliance services built in to enhance that application performance. So things like Cisco WAN optimization or Cisco WAS built into the 4451X itself natively, running on the host platform itself. And of course, pervasive end-to-end security. We're taking all of the same security features that we've had on the ISR G2s, on the ISR family for a while, and we've been adding to with things like Flex VPN and VPN aggregation, and we're putting those on the 4451X itself. So this is the same branch platform that you're familiar with the ISRs, just with a little more horsepower, a little more oomph, and an interesting new services capability. Built-in application hosting, and you'll see more of this over time, for those appliance-like services, and real ASIC-like performance. I'll get into that a little bit more in a couple of slides here, but real consistent ASIC performance. The second use case that we do get used in, and a lot of this is because of our heritage on the 4451X, basically we're a derivative, we're basically taking a lot of our design from the ASR 1000 aggregation services router, and we're applying a lot of that architecture into a branch environment. But because we get a lot of our architecture from the aggregation services router, that means that we have a lot of built-in aggregation features just basically as part of our core system. That makes the 4451X a really attractive regional aggregation platform or low-end branch aggregation platform. So if you think, for example, say the case of a doctor's office, maybe you have a community, a town, a county that has several smaller doctor's offices spread around the area. It might make sense to bring all of those smaller doctor's offices together into a single regional medical center using a 4451X. So we're going to have the same aggregation features, although at a much, much lower scale and performance than an ASR 1000. And again, it does give you that consistent feature, the consistent management, the same look and feel as an ISR or as an ASR 1000 throughout your network. With built-in application performance, so real application visibility built in, so you can see all of the applications going out to those individual doctor's office, those individual branches around the region. Embedded WAS, embedded app nav, so you can actually host and accelerate the WAN natively within this aggregation platform itself. And of course, VPN aggregation, all of the same VPN features that we have when we function as a high-end branch, we can also support for low-end aggregation, for small aggregation. Of course, performance on demand plays here as well. So if you have a really small region with the performance needs that grow over time, that same performance license applies there. And of course, the same ASIC-like consistent performance applies here just the same. Now, where does the 4451X fit into our overall branch portfolio? Well, we currently have the ISR G2s, which really top out around the 2900 series, the 3900 series, and then the newer 3900E series. They generally top out around 350 megabits per second with services. Now, those services are your typical branch services, things like hierarchical QoS, NAT, zone-based firewall, IPsec, the things that you would typically find in an enterprise branch location. Now, running those same services, the next step above a 3945E series, before the 4451X, would have been an ASR 1001, which really starts to play around 2.5 gigabits per second and above. So if you're looking at really high-end branches at 2.5 gigs, 5 gigs, 36 gigs, 60 gigs, even above that, then you're looking at an ASR 1000 platform. Now the 4451X is targeted specifically at that space between the high end of the ISR G2 portfolio, the 3945Es, and the low end of the ASR portfolio, the ASR 1001. So the 4451X is going to hit that spot with performance ranging from 1 gig to 2 gigabits per second with a real licensed pay-as-you-grow performance model. It is based on an ASR 1000 architecture, but it does look and feel just like an ISR, just like the rest of the ISR portfolio. It uses the same familiar interfaces, the same interface types, the same management, the same hardware, the same general look and feel as the rest of the ISR model. It is using a lot of that ASR architecture, that ASR technology, things like a split control and data plane. However, we're bringing that down to the look and feel, to the use case of an integrated services router, to the enterprise branch, and more importantly, in many customers' minds, we're bringing that technology down to the price point that most folks are interested in for a branch platform. Now, the general architecture of the 4451X looks a lot like an architecture from an ASR 1000. So if you have ASR 1000s that you're familiar with, this is going to look a little bit like old hat here. Both platforms have a very platform-specific data plane, and an ASR 1000, that's going to be a custom-designed ASIC called a quantum flow processor. In a 4451X, we take that same software, all of the same features and the same capability from that QFP ASIC, and we're running it in an off-the-shelf 10-core CPU. Now that has a few advantages. That means that we get the same features, the same capabilities as an ASR 1000. However, it means that we're going to be a lower cost as well as a lower performance option from the ASR 1000. Now we aren't targeting 36 gigs, 5 gigs, 120 gigs of throughput the way that you would with a quantum flow processor in an ASR 1000. We're only looking at 1 to 2 gigabits per second of performance. So that trade-off is generally acceptable, moving down from a custom-designed ASIC to an off-the-shelf CPU. But we are running exactly the same software, the same code, so we get the same features, and most importantly, we're at a lower price point than an ASR 1000 architecture, keeping us in line with where most enterprise customers are looking for a 1 to 2 gigabits per second branch platform. Now, above that platform-specific data plane, we are running iOS XE, the same releases that we have for the ASR 1000, and of course, iOS XE does have within it a hardened Linux operating system. Within that Linux operating system, we are running traditional iOS. We call it iOS D or iOS daemon. It's the same iOS, the same capabilities that run in the ISR G2 family, that run in your 7200s that you might have. The benefit of this is that your control plane functions are going to look and feel and run exactly the same. So BGP is going to run exactly the same on a 7200 or an ISR G2 as it does on a 4451X or an ASR 1K. The big difference here is that we're not asking iOS to forward any packets. We're just simply asking it to run those control plane protocols. Now, the concept of a split control and data plane is really nothing new to network technologies. It even shows up from time to time in a branch environment, in a branch architecture. It is a little less rare in branch designs. However, what is very new and innovative about the 4451X is the concept of a services plane. So for the first time, we're including additional hardware, additional CPU cores, additional memory, even additional drives for running these appliance-like services inside of the 4451X router itself. The beauty of this is that we're running exactly the same software in one location as we are inside of the 4451X itself. So take WAS, for example, WAN optimization from Cisco. This is our first appliance service, our first service container that we're running inside of the 4451X. Cisco WAS runs exactly the same software, the same features, the same management interface on a WAS appliance as it does on ISR WAS running inside of the 4451X. That's also the same feature set as vWAS running inside of a virtual machine on the UCSE series or in a data center. So you get the same look and feel, a very consistent approach to features, to capabilities across multiple implementations of that same appliance. Of course, in the future, we'll have additional embedded network services, so stay tuned. We'll have lots of other services you can add in to this virtualization layer inside of the 4451X. And even though this is a virtualization layer, the real beauty of this is that it isn't a complete ship-in-the-night type of approach. So we're not just sending packets over the wall to our virtual container to ISR WAS and then waiting for the response back. We're actually tightly coupling that application, tightly coupling that appliance to the underlying data plane itself. And that's one of the benefits we have because we own both the service container, both the service running up there, as well as the actual data plane itself. So we can actually split that service and run a portion of ISR WAS inside of the data plane. So we have things like AppNav for doing real flow awareness and real WAN optimization resource pooling inside of the data plane, running with every packet through the system. We also have additional capabilities, things like application visibility and control, that give us real layer 7 application awareness inside of our data plane. So we're one of the only platforms in the world that can talk about this tight integration between an appliance service running inside of a service plane of the router, coupled with a component of that service running inside of the data plane of the same router. Now that ASIC-like performance is one of the things that benefits us across the board in all of our use cases. And frankly, this was something that some of our early customers, some of our early field trial customers told us they really loved about the platform. And the beauty of this is because we're taking that quantum flow processor architecture, that QFP architecture from the ASR 1000, we get a very flat, very predictable performance curve. So as you add features, as you add more intense capabilities to the router, you still get the same level of performance. Now, of course, up to a certain point, at a certain point, you will add enough features that you do start to see a tail off, a tapering off in performance, and that's true for most ASIC platforms as well as most software-only platforms. It's just that because of our architecture borrowing so much from the quantum flow processor, we get a very flat, very predictable performance curve. As a matter of fact, if you want to see a more detailed version of this chart, you can take a look at the third-party performance report from Meyer Communications. They actually came out to Cisco and spent a couple of days in the lab running the 4451X through its paces, and they've actually published their results on their website. So take a look at Meyer Communications for their 4451X report, just recently published, and you can see basically the same type of graph that you see here, but with actual feature combinations, configurations, and actual raw performance numbers. Now, the I/O design, the actual physical look and feel of the 4451X should feel very familiar to you if you've seen an ISR G2 or if you've seen an ISR before. And that's intentional. We actually designed the 4451X to look a lot like a 2921 or a 2951, and in fact, you can share a lot of the same spares like rack mount kits between a 2900 series and a 4451X. Some of the things that are new about the 4451X, the first thing you'll notice is a management interface. Not that common to have a management network or an out-of-band management network or a management interface in a branch platform. However, this was basically something because of our split control and data plane architecture. It was really something we could add to the 4451X basically with very little cost to the platform. So the management interface ties directly into the control plane CPU. You, of course, would not want to run real data traffic through it. However, if you do have a management network, if you are configuring the router, if you're running SSH, SNMP, other configuration protocols to the 4451X, this is an ideal place to connect to a management network. Of course, this is an ISR, so we have USB connections, and the USBs are really going to be the best way to move files to and from the 4451X, just like on an ISR G2, the rest of the ISR family. And of course, you can charge your cell phones here, so it's always handy for that as well. The other thing you'll notice, of course, is the front panel gigabit Ethernet interfaces. Just like on the rest of the ISR G2 portfolio, we like to give you a few interfaces for free as part of the base platform design. These can be either WAN interfaces or LAN interfaces. They connect directly to the platform data plane. Because the 4451X is at the high end of the ISR portfolio, you're going to get 4 of these interfaces. And each one of these interfaces are what we call dual PHY, meaning that they can have either a copper RJ45 connection active or an SFP fiber active on an interface-by-interface basis. One of the interesting things that we're really excited about is that 2 of these interfaces are PoE capable. The reason for that is one of the things we noticed with some of our 2900 and 3900 customers is that they really were interested in 4G, LTE, 3G wireless WAN connections, either for backup or for bringing up a remote site as a primary connection really, really quickly. However, a lot of these locations are large enough that you don't have a direct line of sight to the sky. You don't have very good wireless coverage when you have, say, a 3900 in a wiring closet in a basement somewhere away from a window, away from your cell phone towers. So what this PoE interface is designed to do is to actually power and communicate with the new Cisco 812, which is a new 800 series router with both 802.11n wireless LAN radios as well as 4G LTE wireless WAN radios in a small attractive footprint. It's designed to look and feel like a lot of our access points in a branch office. So with a single Cat5 cable, you can power the 812, you can configure the 812, and you can communicate with its radios over that same Cat5 cable. New interfaces in the 4451X, new interface types. We do have an evolution of our EHWIC module in the ISRG2s and the new network interface module form factor, or NIM form factor. Now the NIMs are going to be much larger than EHWICs. That's intentional because that gives us the capability of having up to 8 RJ45s or RJ48 ports on a single module. So you'll see things like our new T1E1 modules that can support up to 8 T1E1s in a single interface card, which is something we could never do with an HWIC or an EHWIC. They also have a larger board footprint, meaning we can build much more larger and powerful modules in the future. And for the case of those T1E1s and other voice-capable modules, we can actually put DSPs directly on the modules themselves for doing physical transcoding on the module. And that's a side effect of having a larger board real estate available to us. We do have one very special network interface module, and that's the NIM SSD, which is compatible with any of these 3 NIM slots. It's actually a dual SSD carrier card, which takes up to 2 solid-state drives, and these drives are specifically there for any of your embedded appliance-like services. They're not required for the system itself to function, but they are used for things like ISR-WAS inside of the system. ISR-WAS would use these dual SSDs for its data redundancy elimination cache. Now, we will have a single hard drive version available in the future. It's just that our early customers told us that they wanted the reliability of an SSD option right out of the gate, but we will have a lower cost hard drive version available in the future. The other main module type that you'll see here looks very familiar to ISR users, and that's our new enhanced service module slot. We call it enhanced because unlike the service modules in the ISRG2s, the enhanced service module actually has a 10 gigabit per second connection to each module slot, whereas the ISRG2 only had a 1 gigabit connection to each module slot. So we can build much more powerful service modules, enhanced service modules in the 4451X, and in many cases these new SMX modules will also be compatible with the ISRG2s. Case in point would be the new SM-X 1T3E3 module, T3E3 module, which is compatible with the 2900 series, the 3900 series, and the 4451X. So that's the 4451X in a nutshell, at a really high level. It's a new platform that we're really excited about, the architectural changes and the new innovations that it brings to the table. It's a very scalable platform. It's really designed as a pay-as-you-grow platform from the very beginning. It's really our first purpose-built gigabit Ethernet branch platform, designed from the ground up to hit those gigabit Ethernet speeds with the look and feel of an ISR. And it's also designed to give you that rich services capability with both split services, data, and control plane. It's also a very smart and very intelligently designed platform, designed with application awareness built straight in from the very beginning, really built with application experience as a key guiding factor in the core design. So we're actually making decisions, making forwarding decisions all the way up at layer 7. We're also part of the 1PK architecture from Cisco, so we're also giving you the capabilities to make your applications much more network aware. So we're fully engaged, we're fully a part of the Cisco SDN strategy and the 1PK strategy, so the 4451X is going to work with your 1PK applications just like the rest of the ISR portfolio. It's a very simple platform. We did design this, as I said, to be a really pay-as-you-grow type of platform so that you really are only paying for the capability, the capacity that you need. We put a lot of additional hardware inside of the 4451X that you're honestly not paying for if you're not using it. So if you're just buying a 4451X with the base capabilities, a base platform, there's a lot of hardware in there that you can turn on as you need it down the road. So things like being able to pay to turn on additional CPU cores, additional data plane cores to get more performance out of the box. Being able to add in additional services, additional appliance services inside of the platform itself from the very beginning, with the idea that you can basically roll out a platform today and not touch it in your branch for 5 to 7 years. And of course, it's a secure platform. We're supporting the same security portfolio, the same security features as the ISRG2 and the ASR 1000 from both a branch connection point of view as well as a high-end or a low-end branch aggregation point of view. So we've got that full security suite across the board for consistent and reliable security. So that's the 4451X in a nutshell. Thank you very much for your time today. Look for the 4451X at cisco.com. The URL for that is cisco.com/go/4451.